Faces of Abortion is the only television program of its kind that shares the powerful, real-life stories of women, men, and families who have suffered through the destruction of abortion. You will be hearing powerful stories from women and men and families throughout the nations. Faces of Abortion touches lives and changes hearts in over 115 nations. You will also be given practical steps on how you can end abortion.
So it just overwhelmed me. And I thought the only way to escape the pain was to take my life.
I had a fear that I wouldn't be able to have my own children.
It brings heartache. It brings hurt.
And I knew they were tearing my baby apart.
I remember the cold feeling of the room.
I remember laying there and I just said to myself that I will never forgive myself for what I'm doing.
I believe that my life was spared that night just so that I could be here right now and say abortion hurts women.
Whisper, be silent no more.
Welcome to Faces of Abortion. I'm your host, Cindy Collins, and I'd like to introduce Alan Parker, who is president of the Justice Foundation, and Clayton Trotter, who is general counsel of the Justice Foundation. And we're going to have some special guests on today, Connie and Dan.
It's going to be an exciting and different kind of episode. People are going to hear the shocking reality of abortion from people who have actually lived through it, and we're very, very privileged to hear their testimonies today.
That's right, Alan. And right now, let's go hear Kathy's testimony in her own words.
Hi, my name is Kathy, and I'm here to tell you about my abortions. First of all, I'd like to start with the fact that about the time I was 12 years old, I was sexually molested by my father. And so at that point, I thought that sex was okay. And I began having sex at the age of 13, and I got pregnant when I was 14, and I didn't tell anybody. I was scared to death, and by the time my mother found out, I was already 4.5 months pregnant. This was in 1973, and in Houston, Texas. I was too far along to have an abortion there. So my mother made arrangements for me through Planned Parenthood to fly to LA to have the procedure done. And so I went on an airplane with probably 20 women, and we stayed in a hotel, and we went to a hospital in LA. I don't remember much about it. I remember waking up from the anesthesia, screaming and trying to rip the curtains off the walls, and coming back home, and nothing was ever talked about it at home. We didn't discuss it. I was just, from the things that my father had tried to do to me, I would, stay out of the house a lot, and I had sex just all the time. And so I became pregnant again at age 15. And this time, my mother and my father decided that I needed to abort as well. And they called a cab, put me in a cab. I drove in the taxi downtown Houston to Planned Parenthood all by myself. Went in, had an abortion. I don't remember the doctor's face. I don't remember seeing much of the nurse. I remember seeing the vacuum tube with all the blood and stuff in it. I really don't know how far along I was on that pregnancy, but I just remember it was just awful pain. And then I got back in the cab and went back home, and it was just like another day. You know, it was just nothing. We never talked about it, and matter of fact, I never discussed my abortions with anybody. And I am 47 years old, and I never really discussed my abortions until the age of 47, when a girl came to my church and was doing the Forgiven and Set Free. And I had only been a Christian for about 5 years then, and I knew I was forgiven, but I didn't know why my life from the time of 13 up until probably I was 41, that I just self-destructed in every kind of way. I was a junkie. I slept with many, many men. I contracted hepatitis C. I had various very abusive relationships. And in that time, when I was 17, I got pregnant at 16. And I had my son, which will be 30 this month, which my mother wanted me to abort as well. I ran off and I didn't do it. That marriage just didn't last. And after that, I just stayed on drugs. I ended up in California. I just was a mess, just a wreck, and I didn't know it. Not only the abuse from my father, but this to me was another form of abuse. And then I just went through so many abusive relationships that they told me that I had enough trauma in my life to have been through 3 Vietnam Wars. And I ended up in prison in California. I ended up abandoning my son, as a matter of fact, and ran off to California when he was 2. Because I couldn't bond with him, I couldn't relate. I was so messed up on drugs that I thought that I was doing the right thing by leaving him, and I left him with my mom and dad, of all people. And I was gone for 8 years. And God gave him back to me when he was 8 years old, and we have a relationship now. And then I have a son now that's 13. But there was such a gap because I had cysts and everything on my ovaries from the abortions. I had to have a lot of surgeries before I could have my 13-year-old. But what I would like to say to anybody is you shouldn't have to go that long in life before you get healed. You shouldn't have to go through that. It is wrong. It is so wrong. And what I would like to say is that Jesus is bigger than any problem you can have. Jesus is bigger. He is the way maker. He will make a way for you and that child because He is the way maker. And I would say that he also says that the number of your hairs, He even knows the number of the hairs on your head, and that He knew you before you were formed in the womb. He knew you and set you apart. And you know, that bothers me a lot because there's so many children